Hey there, fiber friends. I'm Sarah. This is my yarn lab, and today I've got a lab report update on what I've been working on the last little while. And it has been a little while, hasn't it? I was in a really good routine of making sure I had a video out every week here on my channel. And then the last video that I posted was actually sort of a personal and intimate one, if you will, in which I spoke about receiving my pathology results from my breast cancer surgery that I had in October. So if you're not familiar, I was diagnosed with stage 2B breast cancer in March of this year, spent the spring and summer battling it through chemotherapy, and had my mastectomy and reconstruction at the end of October, and gratefully received clean pathology results, no evidence of disease remaining in my body at the beginning of November. And it's been a process processing those results emotionally. Obviously, it's a great thing and great news, but they kind of left me in a bit of a emotional funk for reasons that I discuss in my past video. So you're welcome to check that out, as well as my whole breast cancer journey linked in a playlist below if you're interested. But today we're here to talk more about the knitting that's been going on since then. I should say that, the 2 weeks sort of hiatus here on my channel, was regarding the bit of the emotional funk that I had been in, which was immediately snowballed into a busy situation in my husband's work life, which is also my work life, which snowballed into a round of autumnal viruses brought home from my kids' schools and daycare, and then tumbled into me having to go into work quite a bit more than I usually do. So it's been busy, and this is kind of the first time that I've had a chance to collect my thoughts and have a quiet house in order to record a video to put out for you guys. All that to said, I apologize for being gone for so long, and hopeful to be back into that at least once a week swing of things that I've enjoyed for the last several months here on my Yarn Lab YouTube. So thanks for sticking with me and following along, and probably enough of rambling on that, and let's dive right into the knitting content that I know you guys are all here for. First up, I should say that I am wearing I believe this is called the Carbeth Swan Dance. So Kate Davies is a spectacular designer, I believe from Scotland, and she has a series of patterns of which I've knit, I think, all of them, called the Carbeth. So pattern number 1 was the Carbeth, which is sort of like a raglan yoke sweater, but a normal raglan seam would come up to here, and the Carbeth raglan seam comes to the center point here from each side. So you can see that this Carbeth Swan Dance, same thing, that raglan-esque seam, but it comes directly to the center. So the initial Carbeth sweater was no additional patterning, just sort of the sweater construction, so I knit that one. And then a Carbeth cardigan came out, and I knit that one as well. I'll try and pop a picture of it here. And then Carbeth Swan Dance, which has the same shaping as the original, is a pullover, but has this sort of lacework pattern and is also not cropped. It's quite long. I will say this is probably my most worn sweater. I knit it in one of those commercial yarns that is literally a mix of everything. Like, I think it had like acrylic and wool and silk and alpaca and who knows what. So I don't remember what it's called, and it's probably discontinued, but it has resulted in one of my absolutely most worn sweaters. This is sort of the type of thing that I just throw on. I'm wearing it just over top of a bra next to skin, very comfortably. Can't say enough about my Carbeth Swan Dance. Just love this sweater. Wish that I had more of the similar yarn to knit more projects for myself in it. Alas, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's like an older discontinued situation. So that's what I'm wearing, and now what have I been knitting? First up, I have got, he is mostly done. I need to do a little bit of embroidery on him. This is the Good Frog. This is a pattern by Susan B. Anderson, who does spectacular knitted toy patterns, usually featuring her own wool company, Barrett Wool Company. And I stumbled onto this pattern watching the Grocery Girls Knits podcast. Tracy, I believe, had knit The Good Rabbit. So there is a series of these patterns for little toy dolls, as well as all the clothing that they wear. This is The Good Frog. The pattern does come with pants, with the frog, the pants, which I did not knit, the colorwork sweater, which I did, a larger cardigan that you can layer on top, and a cute little hat. But my good frog is just gonna have the one sweater, and like I said, he still needs a face embroidered on. That's a later today project because this will be gifted tomorrow. And as I was knitting him for the intended recipient, who is like the child of one of our cousins, so I guess that makes him not a nephew, but like a cousin, however family trees work. So the intended recipient will be receiving this frog, and I couldn't help myself. I knit the frog quite quickly Sunday, a little, probably most of the body on Sunday, and then the sweater on Tuesday morning. And then I decided that I wanted to knit a matching pullover sweater for the recipient of the frog. And I cast this little sweater on Tuesday around lunchtime, and I cast it off last night. So 3 days easily. So it's this sweater here. And this pattern is a free pattern by Drops Design. So yeah, it's called the Little Missy sweater by Drops Design. It's of course linked below. It is a free pattern, like I said. It is a top-down colorwork round yoke, very straightforward. I followed the yoke chart and then pretty much just improvised the sleeve decreases and the body. And I actually also, I kept trying it on my son Marshall as we went along, and so I believe the yoke chart has a couple more rows, so I omitted those, feeling that the depth of my yoke was fine. And I also changed a little bit in this portion of the chart here. It had this top triangle with the white inside, and it had the bottom one solid, and I just thought it looked a little bit nicer with a little bit less red and a little bit more white in that round. So I did a little improvising as I went along, nothing too dramatic. I think also the pattern called for DK weight yarn, and I knit this in Knit Picks Swish worsted weight. The white, just some undyed that I had in my stash. And the red is Cascade 220 Superwash that I also had in my stash. I believe I knit the 3 to 4, the 3-year-old to 4-year-old size. The intended recipient is a 2.5-year-old. This will be too big on him, but it will be a sweater to grow into and enjoy for more than 1 year. It fits with room to spare a little bit on my son Marshall, so I think that this will be sort of, maybe not this Christmas, definitely next year, and hopefully the year after. Look how cute together. So really sweet. I omitted to say I knit my frog using Brooklyn Tweed Arbor in the Wreath colorway. The sweater is the same 2 yarns as this one. So very cute, very sweet, super like adorably matching. I just need to weave in my ends and give this a block and get it dry so that it can be wrapped up tomorrow morning. Which should be no problem because it's cold enough that I will have my wood fire going all day today, and wood fires dry sweaters beautifully. So this was a little 3 to 4 days worth of knitting detour from the Christmas knitting that I have been focused on for the last month basically, and that is knitting a set of sweaters for my 3 sons, and that's what I'm going to show you next. I'm not going to go into excruciating detail about any of these 3 sweaters because I do plan on having 3 separate videos featuring each one and unique components or processes for each one. So first up is done but not done yet, Alex's sweater. And here it is. Try and get it all in the frame. This is the Guthrie sweater by Caitlin Hunter of Boyland Knitworks. I think this pattern came out, like I would guess 4 years ago. And it is an adult size pattern. I knit the very smallest size and my gauge was a little smaller than the recommended gauge, and so it shrunk it into a appropriate sweater for a 7.5-year-old. And the yarns that I used, the colored yarn was 2 skeins of some very beautiful Fiber Goddess Downy DK in Pancakes and Fake Orgasms, which for her was a misdyed skein, but for me, I thought the color was just spectacular and gave this sweater an overall stained glass window type effect. The black is quite simply a Cascade 220 Superwash Merino. So a great way to stretch out beloved, expensive indie dyed yarn is to pair it with solids that are commercially available. Then you can stretch out your indie colors quite far that way and get a really beautiful result. So it is done. Ends are not woven in, and it's not all the way done because I'm going to pick out my neckline and drop it down into this row of the color work, creating a more open, flatter sitting neckline. Right now, this really sits up on Alex's neck, very cone or volcano-like. And I don't love that, and I don't think he's gonna love it. No kid wants, you know, the collar of their sweater up near their face, bothering them all the time. So, still to do before Christmas is to pick out this collar and reknit it. And the other thing, which was not part of the plan, but my 3-year-old son Marshall, a couple weeks back when I had just finished this sweater, was going through a phase of cutting things with scissors. And so now we have a hole in, you can see the white hanger poking through, a hole in the shoulder of this sweater. It's disheartening to have a brand new, not even worn, not even blocked sweater damaged like that. I am certainly not going to have to rip back. This was top down. To rip back to fix this would be ripping out everything from here down, which that's not going to happen. And so I think when I make a video on correcting the collar, I'm also going to include the strategy that I have brewing in my head to invisibly repair this hole in a way that also won't cause the yarns to unravel further. And as much as visible mending is all the rage right now, I want this to be invisibly mended. So Guthrie sweater for Alex is, I would say, 95% of the way there. All right, up next, I wanted to knit Dom's sweater. So I didn't really have anything particularly in mind for Dom, so I took him down to my bin of Yarn Lab periodic table of yarn colors. So this was some yarn that I had dyed a few years back when I was doing markets. I don't know if I intend to ever go back to doing markets, but I do have a bin of leftover yarn from that I dive into quite frequently for projects. So I took Dom to the bin and said, pick what colors you want your Christmas sweater for. And he picked this red, which is a great color. The other two are great colors on their own, but this is the color palette that Dom picked for his Christmas sweater. And I couldn't do a whole sweater like in these colors, and that's it. It to me is not a flattering or pretty or nice or anything combination that I would normally go for, or that I would want him walking around looking like, I don't know, ketchup and mustard. So he picked these colors. I said, is it okay if I add some extra colors to it? And he didn't mind. So I went into my stash and looked at these two colors. So I was thinking initially to have these colors in a yoke and to maybe do the whole body of the sweater in this brown, but I didn't have quite enough. I did have enough of this cream, but that's not really helping anything color story wise. So I also grabbed a pop of this blue and settled on the idea of doing a very traditional sort of Fair Isle Nordic stranded color work all over. So we'll have them in a very traditional looking all over color work sweater. I did not use a pattern. I went to my bookshelf of knitting books and pulled my Elizabeth Zimmerman books. She has what is called the Elizabeth's percentage system, EPS, I believe, which is basically, you have a magic number for the circumference of the body of your sweater, and using percentages of that number and ratios, you can set up your decreases for a yoke. You got your sleeve dimensions, everything. So you can use a magic number and knit a swatch, and ta-da, you have a sweater pattern. So I used her percentage system to give me the foundation of where I wanted to go with this sweater. Then I went over to my computer and started playing with charts. And I'm going to go over this in depth when I do this video for this sweater. But long story short, I came up with this body. So all in stranded color work. The contrast is not maybe the greatest to let those sort of snowflake situations pop out. But overall, I feel like it's not too shabby. And I have this much of sleeve number 1. The sleeve and the body length are basically the same according to my math and the size of Dom. So this sleeve number 1 is knit to here. I've only got another 5 inches or so to go on sleeve 1, and then I will knit sleeve 2, join everything up for the circular yoke construction, and up to the neckline. So it's been a lot of math as I go along. It's been a lot of fudging my numbers a little bit because some of these patterns repeat 21 stitches around, some of them repeat in 10 stitches around, some of them repeat in 5 stitches around. So there's been a little fudging as you go along, but that's totally okay because in a sweater you're not going to notice if the, if your row, if your stitch count for a row goes up or down by 1 or 2 every so often to accommodate patterning, you're not going to notice that in an overall sweater. So, been really enjoying this knit. Despite all the colors, it's only ever 2 colors worked in one row, so that's not too bad. Although I often, for having fewer ends weaving in, have 3 or 4 colors attached at once. I have been working all of my ends in as I go along, so you can see inside the body here. Let me pop it this way. They've just got these little tails, but I've been using that locking down your floats technique that I've got a video for on this channel to weave in my ends as I go along, which means at least I won't have hundreds and hundreds of ends to weave in at the end of this project. So that's where this one is. Now that I'm finished that little sweater knit, I am going to get flying on this. I should have this one finished, I think, a week and a half more knitting, right? And there's still lots of time. It's only December 8th. It's lots of time before Christmas. So I should get this one banged out. Hopefully week and a half, we'll call it 2 weeks tops, which will give me a couple of days to get Marshall's Christmas sweater knit. So those 2 sweaters are for Alex and Dom, my 7-year-old twins. Marshall is 3, and like many a 3-year-old boy this year, he is completely obsessed with Spidey and Friends, and Spider-Man, and all things Spider-Man, basically. And so, of course, he wants a Spider-Man sweater. So I took a peek through Ravelry, and it is this thing where Disney, who now owns Fox, who now owns a lot of Spider-Man related rights, clutches those rights in their tight fists and doesn't release them out into the world very often. And so it's actually very, very difficult to find a official Spider-Man sweater pattern to follow. There are 2 sweaters that I contemplated using the pattern for. So this is, of course, linked below, but the 2 sweaters that I really looked at were the Cobwebs sweater. I'll try and pop a picture here, by Megan Ann Lama, I believe. Now, this one is a really great sweater with the all over spider webbing pattern and a little spider on the sleeve, but I believe it's only in adult sizes. So I didn't opt to purchase that pattern. I also looked at the Super Web sweater, and this is a Sirdar pattern, this one here. I bought this pattern, I printed it out, And ooh, the construction and the numbers. So it's not charted out, and I prefer to work from charts. It is worked, I believe, flat up until the yoke and then in the round. And the decreases are not conventional, or at least I couldn't figure them out in a way that they sort of matched a conventional round yoke decreasing scheme, if you will. And although I could knit it just as is in 2 colors, I've got it in my head that I want to actually knit the Spider-Man sweater in the colors and shapes and arrangements to actually match the Spider-Man costume. So not just, you know, maybe a red sweater with the black lines and call it a day. I want, you know, the red portion, but then blue under the arms, and I want to put the spider in the middle. Long story short, I've decided I'm going to pattern this one myself. Luckily, I have just finished working a top-down round yoke sweater that does fit Marshall beautifully. Like I said, a little bit big on him, but not cumbersomely big. And then this way you get more longevity out of a sweater for a child. So I just finished this sweater that I know fits him that has a wedge-shaped repeating yoke pattern. I think I'm going to adapt that into a pattern for Marshall's Spider-Man sweater. I may need to work it flat because to do sort of portions in blue under the arms and the sides, but then red down the middle, I don't want to carry that blue and red throughout. It'll be just too thick and heavy. So I might either have to do intarsia in the round or knit it flat and have some seams. We'll figure that out. But I do have the yarn, which I purchased during Knit Picks big yarn sale. Actually purchased too much yarn during Knit Picks big sale. We'll talk about that in a second. But I've got the Spider-Man colors in Knit Picks Swish DK, which is a yarn that I have used many, 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 many times. So I don't even have to work a gauge swatch because I have multiple projects around the house on this base, knit on different needle sizes. So there's my gauge swatch. Yeah, so we're going to use these colors and pattern out a sweater because it is a Disney and Marvel copyright product. I won't be offering the pattern, but I will videotape and have a video on the progress and how I did it so that if you wanted to embark on a similar situation, you could yourself. But Spider-Man sweater, am I delusional that I am going to finish Dom's all over colorwork sweater before Christmas and knit Marshall's all over colorwork sweater that doesn't have a pattern before Christmas and fix Alex's Guthrie sweater that needs a new collar and has a hole before Christmas? That is for you guys to decide. Is there also a part of my brain that has knit a pair of socks for Dom, is halfway through a pair of socks for Marshall, and thinks that maybe I'll finish a pair of socks for Alex too? Might also be delusional. Did I also pull yarn for a Pikachu hat out of my stash? Also delusional. But, you know, the 3 sweaters, that's a priority, and anything else that happens is just gravy. So, of course, the thing that's going to help me get these sweaters done in time for Christmas is casting on another totally unrelated, totally unnecessary colorwork project, right? So when I dove into my stash to look for a green for the little frog, I actually had a set of 3 Brooklyn Tweed Arbor skeins, picture here, in red, white, and green Christmas colors that happened to be the exact amount of yarn required for the Arne and Carlo's advent calendar knit along this year. Should I be participating in that? Probably not. Am I working on that? Absolutely. I can't help myself. I don't know. I think that some of my post-cancer funk energy has been turned into a creative explosion delusion energy. And this is where we are now today, friends. But here we go. This is the start of the Colorwork stocking. That is the Arne and Carlos 2023 Advent Knit Along. Knit in Brooklyn Tweed Arbor. This is Wreath. The red is Vintner, like wine. And the white is Hammock, apparently. Anyways, of course, all linked below. And I am not caught up. I think I'm caught up to day 4. But basically, what they did was before the 1st of December, they released the material list and the toe construction for the stocking. And then each day in December, they are releasing 6 rows of knitting for your stocking. 6 rows is totally manageable. It's like a little snack of knitting that I can add to my pile of knitting that I really need to do. This is like a little snack, and everything else is the main course and dessert and tomorrow's meal as well. So with all that being said, I knit up the toe yesterday and I'm getting caught up on my color work because I'm delusional. I guess. I don't know. Sorry, guys. But yeah, so this is just super fun. If you want to join in, you can hop on over to their blog. That's where they're posting all of the patterns. They also are posting a short video every day in December over here on YouTube. I will link their channel below where they preview that day's additional chunk of colorwork knitting, as well as just talk about all things getting ready for Christmas and their lives, and just sort of a casual chat every day. Kind of along the style of Vlogmas, but not being vlog format, just being a sit down and chat format. So yeah, and it's free. Did I mention that? It's free. You can download the pattern anytime up until I think Boxing Day, December 26th. And then I think after that, it will become a paid for pattern on their website. So, I mean, even if you don't knit the whole thing, hop on over towards Christmas and get the whole pattern at least. But yeah, I think it's just turning out super, super charming. So I have the first section. They've got a red and white colorwork section released, and it looks like today's glue is starting into a green and white colorwork section. So did I need another project? No. Am I happy I have this one? Absolutely. So that's what I've been working on. I'm happy. A lot of this, with the exception of Marshall's sweater yarn, all of the rest of this is from my stash. So continuing with trying to bust some of my just explosive stash of yarn. Like I've got my yarn wall behind me, but I've got bins upon bins of yarn and spinning fiber and all the rest. So did I have any business shopping in Knit Picks big sale this year? I didn't. Oh, but I did. So, for those who are unfamiliar, Knit Picks does an annual big sale before Black Friday in November every year. And the format has been different years. This year, sort of, they had different things on each day of the week of the sale, including a 24 or 48 hour period where they had quite a few yarns for $2 a skein, $3 a skein, or $4 a skein, which is unbelievable. In years past, I have used $2 or $3 a skein yarn to purchase whole sweater quantities of yarn. This year was no different. So I did 2 orders over 2 days of the sale. I already showed you that I got that Swish DK for Marshall. That was part of the first order. I picked up 3 skeins in Christmas colors of Brava. This is their acrylic worsted weight base. So very Christmassy for a project that'll probably end up being a next year project. Probably. How am I saying probably? Will obviously be a next year project because I'm not casting anything else on between now and Christmas. At least unless I finish everything that I have. So Christmas yarn for next year. The fingering chroma, so this is one of those color changing yarns. This one is in, why doesn't it have the color? The color doesn't have a name. Oh, Seahorse. In Seahorse, picked up 2 skeins, thinking maybe Alpine Bloom. but maybe not that. So, you know, one of those color change yoke sweater patterns. Thought I would grab some of that. I picked a sweater quantity of Upcycle Alpaca Blend in worsted weight in Fruit Punch colorway. And these guys were $2 a skein. So $2 or $3 a skein? $2 or $3 a skein. Like these were, like, to get a sweater quantity of yarn for less than $20 and like quality yarn, I'm all over that. So I picked 5 skeins of this worsted weight. They did cap it this year. In years past, you were able to buy as much of. This year it was a 5 skein max. And then also that same, Upcycle Alpaca Blend, which I should have said is 33% alpaca, 33% wool, and 33% acrylic. So one of those everything yarns that feels great next to skin and is going to wear wonderfully. This is the same blend, but in the sport weight in this green pear color. 5 skeins of that. And then I picked out a color palette of the Upcycle Surrey Alpaca. So these must all have recycled content in them. From the ball band, it's not clear how the recycled content is incorporated in. But I picked out 4 colors to do, I think this sweater pattern, I think was my idea. I don't remember what it's called, but I can visualize it, so I've got the picture here. So I picked up enough of this yarn for that sweater, as well as some undyed roving for some projects for the new year. So just a case more yarn to add to my already overstuffed yarn life. So that's all I've got to share with you today. Thanks for sticking with me, joining in, making it to this point in the video. I hope that it wasn't too self-deprecating in my knitting Christmas delusions. I think that I have pulled off, you know, more knitting on a tighter deadline for Christmases past, so I'm confident in my delusion, but we'll see. I kind of am planning on putting up some more YouTube shorts, TikTok shorts. I did 2 of my sort of idea of this countdown to Christmas knitting, where I was going to show you my daily progress back in November, and then, you know, life hit the fan in a lot of ways. So I'm going to try and pick that back up next week, just as I work through this giant pile of knitting Christmas deadline, Christmas knitting. I've got yarn pulled for a number of projects to dive into the minute that this is off my needles. And yeah, I've just got a lot of creative energy for knitting right now. Sometimes that works against me and it ends up in a lot of starts and not necessarily finishes. But certainly with the Christmas deadline, there will be finishes, and I am definitely going to be sharing them with you. That's what I've got for you today. I hope all is well. I hope that you are not feeling the burden of your own holiday knitting deadlines, whether they be real or self-imposed or what have you. Remember, we knit for people because we love to knit and we love the people, right? I guess. Anyways, like I said, thank you so much for watching today. Hopefully it wasn't too unhinged. And I will see you next week with another video and with more progress, hopefully in short form in the meantime. And I gotta get some of these projects up on Instagram. I've just been a bad social media knitter lately, but that happens. So, rambling at the end of my video. Great. That's all I got. Happy knitting, spinning, crocheting, weaving, dyeing, felting, stitching, sewing, whatever it is that you do with fiber, because after all, this is the Yarn Lab. Bye for now.